Star Trek, the next generation. You're loved throughout the nation. You're my favourite show. Was in every episode you're lucky. You don't have to wait for buses. You just step into the transporter and off you boldly go. Mr. Wall's my favourite person.
Welcome to the bOrgCast. We are the Borg. And our purpose is to assimilate Star Trek for the next generation.
Hello, friends!
Hello!
I hope all is well with you as we continue our voyage, and we're getting towards the end of Season 5. The Mark put a piece on the forum about homosexuality in Trek, or the lack of therein, and there was led to a certain amount of discussion comparing Trek's approach to it with modern Who, which is that sort of discussion you wouldn't see on other forums about foaming at the mouth. So, well done, Geek Planet Online.
Indeed,
Contributors for being sane. Following on from First Duty's lack of an empath, Daria pointed me in the direction of some articles by lawyers discussing whether the evidence of telepath would be admissible in court, citing the possibility of a sort of Professor X-type mutant actually existing, which has an interesting relevance with our first episode tonight. And apparently his evidence wouldn't be admissible on the grounds that it would override the Fifth Amendment and therefore be unconstitutional. Otherwise it would deny them their right to silence. And there's also the issue of how trustworthy a telepath might be, or an empath. Could you trust that they were telling the truth when they said that they sense deception or indeed truth? So
that's true.
So yeah, they're obviously not going to be 100%. But then again, if it's a member of Starfleet they know they can rely on, like Deanna, I would have thought she would be a fairly safe bet. But there we go. Shall we move on to tonight's first episode, which is The Perfect Mate?
A beautiful seductress comes to life.
Kamala is the key to peace between our two worlds.
A woman destined to end years of war.
You learn so quickly what stimulates a man.
And determined to satisfy forbidden desires.
Don't do this. This you do with men.
But will Picard sacrifice peace for passion?
Would you ask me to stay and ask two armies to keep fighting?
On Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Okay. You open with the captain's log about finally settling the dispute between Krios and Vault Miner. Why did they invent these boring captain's log thingies?
The idea, I think, is to get you up to speed with the background as quickly as possible. But yes, because we've seen so many episodes of this now, it's such a tired trope.
It's just...
You'd have thought they'd have found a more creative way of introducing things by now, but no, they haven't.
It's like, most of the time, you want to start after the teaser.
Yeah.
Anyway, captain's log. Yeah. There's going to be a ceremony of reconciliation. And then you see Dr. Hewer!
Hurrah! Buck Rogers time again! Of course, he only featured in the first season, the superior season, clearly, for connoisseurs of Buck Rogers, because he was replaced by Wilfred Hyde-White in his Space Cardies in the second series, which ironically aped Trek, but really badly. And
Now, wasn't one of them brown?
One of the Cardigans?
Yeah.
Quite probably. I've tried to blank them out of my brain, but
okay.
Yes. This isn't Dr. Hewer, though. This is Ambassador Briam.
Well, from now on, he's Dr. Hewer.
Oh, dear. He has an interesting dress sense, doesn't he? It's sort of African-style dress he's wearing.
Yes. No, it is a bit lurid.
Rather too many colours in there, I think. All the colours. Not quite Colin Baker, but...
Yeah, so Dr. Hewer and Picard are talking, and then they have a Ferengi shuttle issuing a distress call. Now it's time to get anal about spaceships. Woohoo!
Took a trip on a Gemini spacecraft, and thought about you.
Return of the Ferengi Shuttle, well seen in the price.
Passed through the shadow.
I rather like it. It's a cute little character-filled model, that one.
I think it looks a bit naff.
Do you? I seem to remember you making that comment before, but I'm still disagreeing with you. I like it.
But I've worked out why I think it's naff.
Yep.
It's because there is insufficient detail on it.
Oh, right.
On the model,
Yeah.
it's all very.
Generally, I think it was only ever supposed to be seen at a distance. I expect by the time we see it in Deep Space Nine, they've probably CGI'd it and added a level of detail onto it. But yeah, because there is at least one appearance, because Quark gets his own shuttle, doesn't he?
He does at one point.
But then it turns out to be booby-trapped or something, I seem to remember. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah. But that's what it is specifically that means I don't like it.
Yep, okay.
Anyway, you get some transporter bod has to get ready for a long-range transport, and then the shuttle goes kablooey.
Yeah, she's Ensign Maggie Hubble.
As in Hubble Telescope?
Yes, that's exactly who she's named after. And she also appeared in Reunion. And she'll be appearing in Deep Space Nine's Emissary. Oh. Which we'll be covering in just over a month's time.
Ooh. But they've got the Ferengi, who then bumble around. One of them is recognisably Max Credenchik, although he's not playing Rom.
No, he's Pa Lenore in this. And he does play it differently to
does.
Rom, actually. He's got a much higher register in his voice than he does as Rom's. But this one's got a very amusing, high-pitched voice.
Yeah, but also he's not obsequious like Rom is.
No.
And the body language is different too.
It is, yes. He's far more sort of excitable and outgoing and stuff. He's quite fun. The other guy is Qual. Qol. How are you supposed to pronounce that? I don't know.
Cole.
Maybe Cole. Yes, that's possibly better. What? Just put a K then, for heaven's sake. Anyway, he's played by Michael Schneider, who will return as another Ferengi in that classic Next Gen episode Rascals. And he's also appeared as a communications officer at Starfleet HQ in Star Trek IV. And he's crewman Dax, he of the big feet in Star Trek VI.
If
the shoes fit
yes.
him.
No, they don't. Yeah. Okay. And then you get Riker going to Worf, assign them quarters far away from mine or something like that.
Yes, nowhere near mine. Ooh, racist Riker, honestly.
Well, I don't know. The Ferengi aren't to be trusted. Anyway, they get
I think it's just a throwaway racist comment, personally, but there you go.
And then you get them, the door shuts, and they go, "That was too easy."
Yeah, and they try and persuade Worf to let them eat at the captain's table. And Worf says,
"The captain dines alone."
And that was your teaser. And then you have this temple on the holodeck.
Yeah, it's a good set, that, I think.
It is.
It's very well lit, so it gives it a sense of depth. Yeah, sort of the holodeck portraying another environment really nicely, so I like that. And
you've got various things that they're like a sort of wooden xylophone-y thing, that of which more later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's basically going to be various rituals that have to be observed in this temple thing. And Dr. Hewer has been talking about his cargo, and the cargo bay is, off limits because the cargo's fragile. But the Ferengi have got in, so that was well guarded then.
Yes. Nice how they look after other people's property, isn't it?
And there's this sort of oval glowing on stilts.
You know what it reminded me of? Not a Kinder Egg, but the inside of a Kinder Egg. You know, the
yellow
bit where you've got the toy? It looked just like that. You kind of expected the Ferengi.
Kinder, you're both shaky. Me unscrabbly. Shaka-dooby! Doubly shaka-dooby! Pop swabble! Toy!
Oh dear, they don't make freaky adverts like that anymore, do they?
No.
Probably just as well. It's a wonder anybody ever ate any of those.
Yeah. Collie's sort of made a wobbly crate ladder thing that's bound to, result in him breaking his back and needing controversial surgery. But there's some sort of BP alarm thing goes off on Borg's console, and it's like, security to cargo B1, it's the Ferengi. And it's like, okay, so you've got this thing set up to alert you that someone's gone in there when they weren't supposed to, but you're reacting a bit slowly, and wouldn't it have been better to have it that nobody could get in?
Yeah, like a lock on the door, for instance, because there's no scene with Qual looking like he's trying to break in or anything. No. He just walks in. Anyway, security get there, and Cole goes all sort of wobble, 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 and then claims to be looking for a barber shop. As excuses go. For a Ferengi, that is pretty damn feeble. Well done. And then this yellow thing sort of wobbles and falls over, and out steps Famke Janssen with trill spots. Yeah. So you've got the Ferengi sort of scanning it to begin with. That's when he's wobbling on the crates. That's what he's doing, presumably to try and get closer to the Kinder Egg. And I was thinking, is that tricorder the same as the Ferengi tricorder from Deep Space Nine? Having done a bit of an image search, yes, it is. So that's a nice bit of continuity there. And we also get Pa Lenore, who's kind of distracting Picard.
Oh, yeah, being so annoying.
To try and stop them discovering that his colleague is studying the Kinder Egg. And he get one point he says that peace is good for trade, which is almost rule of acquisition rule number 35, peace is good for business.
Yes.
As opposed to, of course, number 34. Which
war is good for business, yes.
It's a good preparation for Deep Space Nine, this episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Famke Janssen, of course, appeared famously in GoldenEye and later in the X-Men films. Jean Grey. Yep. She was originally approached to play Jadzia in Deep Space Nine, but she decided she wanted to concentrate on her movie career, and that didn't go too badly for her, did it? But the spotty makeup clearly stayed, because originally they did do I think we mentioned before, a makeup test with Terry Farrell with the Trill makeup from The Host, which is kind of a bumpy forehead, and that just made her look a little bit ugly, so they thought, well, why hire an actress that's so good looking and hide her behind bumps? So they went with a spotty look instead. But it's ironic that Janssen's playing a mutant in this too, which is how she describes herself. And she's wearing a very nice dress, but seems to live in it right up until the last scenes, which is a bit odd, but there we go.
Yeah, it seems to be mostly floaty.
Yes. And quite see-through in places as well.
Yep. And that's another thing, like if it's like she's emerged too early and, they don't want her to be a distraction to the other men, why not put her in a boiler suit?
Yes, they could have dressed her a little less appealingly, couldn't they? But of course, originally the idea was they were going to hatch her out just before she met her groom-to-be, so it wouldn't have mattered so much.
But once they realise it does matter, why not
they could have put her in a sack of potatoes or something, yeah.
Yeah.
It might have been a good idea.
Yeah, or a hijab.
It turns out that she's one of these, what are they called? It's an empath, a certain...
Empathic metamorph.
Yes, so she can alter herself to appeal to any man, interestingly. There's no sense that any women might be attracted to her, which is interesting, but there we are.
No. I mean, on this women thing, I seem to remember, because she does mention pheromones, I seem to remember men and women do produce different pheromones.
Ah, whether you're gay or straight...
Male and female produce different pheromones.
Oh, right.
So, given that somehow that's how her metamorphosis works, is with male pheromones, it doesn't mean women wouldn't be attracted to her, but she wouldn't. The science, I know it's made up science, but you know what I mean. The science is such that if it's the pheromones that are doing it, she wouldn't necessarily be able to metamorphose for a woman. And she ends up snogging Riker.
Yes. I think he's met his match with her, rather, hasn't he?
Yes. It's interesting, though, that he clearly he does back off.
Oh, yes, quite literally walks backwards out the room.
He does. And then I love this.
This has been very educational, but I make it a policy never to open another man's gift.
I know my role in history, Commander. But it's going to be a long voyage.
It certainly is. We'll try to make you as comfortable as possible. Riker to bridge. If you need me, I'll be in holodeck 4.
I'll be in me bunk, in other words.
Yes, I like that. And then you have a scene of Picard having breakfast with Crusher. Now, is this the first time we've had this?
It's the first time we've seen it. It's mentioned as happening before. And my favourite episode, Cupid, is it, with Vash? If you remember, that Crusher arrives to have her usual breakfast appointment with Picard, only to find that Vash is there, and then Picard has to explain Vash's his connection with her and stuff. But yes, this is something that's been referenced in the past, but we've not actually seen before. But it's quite fun, isn't it? He kind of loses his shit with her, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's quite funny. She's like, what you're doing, this is slavery, and all the rest of it. But then it turns out that he doesn't know that she's being confined to quarters against her will. And it's like, oh no, that's different.
Yeah.
So he goes to investigate, and she talks about how she is vulnerable to the desires of men. And so, it would be a distraction if she was to go sort of out and about or whatever. And Picard goes, not every man.
Yeah.
And promptly then gets Data involved. But, if it's vulnerable desires of men, why not go, hello, Troy?
Yeah,
Troy's also an empath,
yes,
you know?
They've got quite a few female crew members on board. That scene with her when he goes to visit her is really well shot because you see her reflection in the mirror as he comes in, and you get a two-shot, but with her in the mirror and him stood. It was really clever. That I quite like that, and also the way that Picard backs awkwardly out of the room as well.
Yeah. So then Data takes her to 10 forward, which doesn't seem intelligent.
No.
And it's full of a load of... They look like they should be miners or something.
They are miners. They're described as being miners. Doesn't tell you what of. They're all sort of different species. They're all slightly different. But they're pretty Cro-Magnon, aren't they, really? And
so she starts flirting with them. And then Riker sees her and turns round and disappears. And it's like, oh, you off to holodeck 4 again then, are you? And then Data sort of has to intervene. It's all getting a bit rowdy. So then Worf comes off and says, you know, are we all right here? And then as she's leaving the room, as Data's taken her out, she growls at Worf, and Worf growls back.
Well, he begins to and then realises what he's doing, and he goes, oh, my.
Yeah. But again, it was stupid taking her to 10 forward.
Yeah.
You know, why can't she come and put on a stupid, ugly leotard and do them funny bendy exercises with, you know, or go and have a pedicure or...
Wear a sack of potatoes, I think, is the best bet.
Wear a sack of potatoes and hang around with women. You know? Why did they not think of this?
Nice performance from Brent Spiner in this scene, though, I think.
Yes.
It's like, what am I going to do?
Yes. And then you have the Ferengi are trying to bribe Dr. Hewer.
Yes.
And he's not having any of it. And then they say, well, we've got a ship rendezvousing that's going to be in 3 hours, it's going to beam us off. And he's like, thank you for that information, I'm going to give it to Captain Picard. So then they wrestle with him to try and stop him getting out the door, and then somehow manage to smash him on a table.
Yeah, it's not massively convincing, is it, how this happens, but never mind.
No, it isn't. So yeah, they broke Dr. Hewer.
No.
And then in sickbay, he's going to recover, but it's going to be a few days. So then Kamala persuades Picard that they will work together to teach him what he needs to know, and then he can replace Dr. Hewer as the negotiator. Mm-hmm. So then you get Patrick Stewart as Patrick Moore on xylophone.
Now, the sound of this instrument is actually a Balinese gamelan, but it does sound like a sort of space-age xylophone, doesn't it? Yeah.
And then, finally, they meet Ulrich of Volt, who I just want to call Horlicks.
Who turns up, guess what, on the Jovis. Hooray! It's been a few episodes since we've seen the Jovis. It's about time it got another airing, isn't it? Sigh.
And he's quite ugly, really.
Oh, poor chap.
Well, the guy underneath the makeup might be fine. But Captain Horlicks is quite ugly. And it turns out that Horlicks is more concerned about trade agreements than he is about Kamala. And then you get Picard and Crusher having, well, I suppose you presume it's breakfast, but it's like a really fucked up teapot.
We get to see the Crusher manoeuvre again as
she
holds the cup awkwardly, but then again the cups are pretty badly designed as well, so probably hard to hold them in any other way, to be honest.
Except that Picard manages it.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, can I take the uniform off for a moment? And he talks about, clearly he's got feelings for her, but he sort of says it in a roundabout way, and then you get this really sweet scene where they hold hands, and he's just like, oh. And so then he goes to see Kamala wearing an icky ice cream sundae dress. That's
her wedding dress.
It's horrible.
It's pure chintz, isn't it?
And also, to be honest, if she'd worn that the whole time, she'd have been less of a distraction to all of the crew.
Yeah, you'd think, yeah. It is supposed to be beautiful, but it looks nothing like.
Whereas the thing she was wearing before was very flimsy, but beautiful.
Yes.
It turns out that she's bonded with Picard.
Oh, knows.
Because apparently that's how you attract a metamorph, is to sort of push them away.
Yeah, try not to engage with them. Well, at one point he says, I'm really boring, and tries his best to be boring, but that just attracts her all the more.
So again, really they should have got a woman, shouldn't they?
Yes, they should.
Because the woman might have fallen in love with Kamala, but from what she was saying about metamorphosis...
they should have got Beverly to do it, because we already know she's not at all attracted by women, so...
No, that's true. Actually, that would have worked.
Again, another host reference.
Yeah, no, that would have worked. And I mean, the way Beverly's hair has been most of season 5, I think, Kamala would struggle to find her attractive, really.
Mm.
She says that having bonded with Picard, she understands duty, so she is going to go ahead with the wedding, which she does. And then you get Picard sort of looking awkward.
Yes.
But there's an interesting deleted scene on the Blu-ray where he fantasises about stopping the wedding.
Yeah.
And saying you only care about trade agreements, let's sort those out and I'll have her.
Yeah, basically.
And then it leaves with Dr. Hugh as better now.
Yeah.
And he's going on the transporter and he's like, I was chosen for a specific reason. I'm 200 years old. So I'm, even I find it hard to resist her wiles. And again, I'm thinking, well, then why did they send a man?
The idea is his plumbing is so ancient that he basically can't rise to the occasion.
Okay.
It's the idea.
Fine, but it's still stupid. I mean, if it's all around, specifically male pheromones, then provided with a female escort.
The flesh is willing. Was it the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak? I think in Dr. Hugh's case, yes, is the idea. But even he says that kind of needed the occasional cold shower.
And that's just it. If it's all around the pheromones, then make it that her escorts are female.
Yeah. But
if that's not how it works, it's just attraction, then you've suddenly... It's like a ridiculously exclusive heterosexual universe.
Yeah. And Picard goes kind of strange. Dr. Hugh says to Picard, how did you resist her? And Picard just says, goodbye. You think, well, actually, you'd be filling in all sorts of blanks. It didn't happen then, I suspect. That suggests that things went on that shouldn't have done.
Yeah, but they did, though, because she bonded with him.
Well, yes and no, but he didn't... Well, we didn't see him do anything out of line, did we? So
no, but it went wrong because she bonded with him.
Yeah, but the impression Picard gives by not saying anything and just saying goodbye and effectively changing the subject does give you the impression that actually something far worse happened, but there we are.
Yeah. And
Dr. Hugh leaves on a Creation ship that's actually the Tellarian observation craft in one shot. Remember which episode is that? That's got is it the bonding with the lad that is discovered on the Tellarian ship, observation ship, and Picard kind of looks after him, and he's actually the son of an admiral. Remember that one?
Oh, Jono.
That's it, the Jono one, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but bizarrely, because they were reusing shots of two different models. To begin with, it's the Tellarian observation craft, which has two wings on it that are vertical. And then in the next shot, when it flies away, it suddenly becomes the Tellarian warship, which has kind of got an X-wing configuration. But you did notice that.
I presumed that it rotated. It has still had 3 vaguely spiky bits. But
No, it goes from 2 to 4.
Right, well, I didn't notice that, and it's a bit beige, and I'm not interested.
Disgraceful. Just disgraceful. Not paying attention to the right things, I told you.
So, it's not a bad episode.
No.
But it's a bit odd.
Yes.
I mean, there are some stupid bits in it.
Yes.
Like I said, if we are supposed to believe that this whole thing with her and pheromones is specifically masculine, where are all the female escorts?
Yep.
And if it's not specifically masculine, if it's just an assumption of heterosexuality, well then where are all the gay men escorts? I mean, because Dr. Hugh could have turned round and said, how did you resist her? And he could have gone, I'll bat for the other team.
And it is slightly icky the way she's portrayed. It would have been more interesting had actually Kamala been a male, had they reversed it and it was male empaths that are very rare rather than the other way round. But obviously it wouldn't have been Picard that got involved then, but it would have felt less icky somehow. I can't help feeling all this whole idea of transporting a living being as effectively as property to give away to sign a treaty. The sexual politics are a lot dodgier if that person is female than if it's male. Actually, that's more interesting, I think. But there you go. Having said that, Famke Janssen is obviously very easy on the eyes, so there are some quite slow, dull scenes with some very saccharine music, but the fact that you get to see Famke Janssen in a pretty damn revealing dress kind of helps.
You can see most of her arse on a number of occasions.
Not just the arse, but yes. Yeah, and there are some nice scenes with Crusher and Riker and Worf as well. That's quite good. So it's not appalling, and it's not as boring as it might have been, but it is a bit icky. It's quite similar to the plot to Ilana Troyes. Remember that one? We watched it quite recently. The original series story, where they're transporting somebody who's supposed to be married to somebody else, but she's actually a really horrible cow of a character, but she falls for Kirk, needless to say.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that. And
yes.
She just behaves like a 2-year-old and throws hairbrushes, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's not so very pleasant, but there we are. I think my biggest criticism of this story actually is just the way Ferengi are treated, which is, as Next Gen has mostly treated them, as incompetent bad guys of the week for comedy value, and about halfway through the story they're kind of forgotten and shipped off to be arrested, which is a bit sad, really. So in some senses this is a case of roll on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And particularly seeing Max Grenadic give a really good performance, but to be brutally honest, he's mostly wasted in this, and I'm glad that they decided that he should be a regular on Deep Space Nine, because he becomes one of the best characters. So yes, consider this as a lead-in to Deep Space Nine, and it's not so bad, particularly considering we get the Trill makeup all of a sudden.
Yeah, and as you said, I know they're not named yet as a rule of acquisition, but
yes, we got the origins effectively.
Yeah.
Shall we go for some feedback then?
Okay.
Let's find out. Shall we start with Daria? I think. If you need me, I'll be on holodeck 4. Guess that's where the Enterprise keeps its cold showers. At first, this seemed like Star Trek doing arranged marriages, but that's not quite where it ended up. Picard and Dr. Crusher have a conversation about it that could play out almost exactly the same today. It's true, but the theme, to me, seemed to take on a broader issue of identity. Who is Kamala? She has only been raised to react to others. Or is she someone whose self is her reaction to others? For that matter, isn't anyone. She says she'll never truly bond with the Art Garfunkel guy. He is, yes. But who is saying that? A true Kamala beyond her conditioning. Maybe she's just reflecting what Picard wants to hear. Take note, though. She only reacts to men, and only men to her. Another reminder that we're in the hetero future. Sigh. On a far lighter note, I've read that Gates McFadden wore a wig in many of her episodes. Looking at her this week, I think I can tell. Just look at the breakfast scenes where it's not sitting well. But then maybe Dr. Crusher herself. We shouldn't judge, though Picard might. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We've heard from the Mark.
And he writes, The Perfect Mate, or Mindfucking. When I watched this one as a kid, this was my mother's favourite episode, and I found it likeable. That was a long time ago. You know how this story goes out and states very clearly that she does this or that of her own free will and is not a slave. But bullshit, Kamala's life has been in preparation for an arranged marriage. It's called grooming, or if we're being polite, wife-husbandry. In fact, she is to be a gift in these negotiations. You cannot give a woman as a gift. That makes her property. It's clear to me that she's had a lifelong indoctrination into a free-willed duty, and if that's not a form of oppression, I don't know what is. Yep, she's a sex slave, and the Enterprise has become a de facto humanoid trafficking vessel. At least Beverly is appalled by the way Kamala is being treated. Picard's apologist talk for arranged marriages in Earth history is pretty squicky.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that sex is implied between Picard and the sex slave Kamala in the scene from the night before, when he's in her quarters talking.
Oh, that's interesting. You see, I didn't think it was, but...
The scene fades with him still there. I think he stayed, they made love, and that's when she bonded.
Oh.
I think also that when the ambassador asked how the captain could resist, he was just dying to say, I didn't, and start tap dancing. But instead held it all in and just wished him on his way rather than address the question and have to lie. Point made. The Perfect Mate is really a story about Picard, and Kamala becomes his perfect mate for a short while and bonds with him. But I don't think she bonds with him, even if they did make love. Being Picard's perfect mate, she knows that he will put duty first, and therefore she gives him a paragon of integrity job, as they both still must separate for the greater good. Exactly the type of woman Picard dreams of.
Which is kind of ironic. The sort of his perfect woman is so wedded to duty like him that they couldn't possibly ever come together because they're too wedded to duty.
She will do the same for the man she ends up with. The whole Shakespeare thing is just to make him feel that this is his perfect relationship with a woman who loves him but who must leave him for duty. This isolated man's ideal woman. I also want to know, where are the rest of the negotiating teams representing both parties? You'd think with something of this importance, more than single ambassadors would be sent, so that an outsider like Picard wouldn't have to be relied upon to fill in for one of them.
Apparently not, no. It's just one neat piece. It's curious, isn't it?
Patrick Stewart owns, with yet more great acting, Famke Janssen, who at this time is just an ex-model, plays a number of roles and tones well. We will come to models who can't act when we get to Deep Space Nine. Famke Janssen was first choice for Dax after all. Is he dissing Terry Farrell?
Yeah. Curious. I can't remember her acting being bad.
It's a bit peculiar in the first season, but then I think she was instructed to play Dax as quite cold in the first season.
Right. Oh, we'll come to that.
Also, Troy was left out, so the show's resident hot chick didn't pale in comparison. Also, we did not get much female contact with her, in case that all brought up issues like,
yes,
she bond with an empath, and
yes,
would two empaths bond even quicker, and would that freak out Rick Berman? This is perhaps the closest any TV episode has actually been to convincing me that two people fall in love in a 43-minute TV episode.
You know, he's right, yes, because you do get a sense that, Picard's fallen for her and vice versa, don't you?
Yeah.
And it works because she's engineered that way.
Yes.
She's, and likewise, if she'd spent more time with Riker, I guess it would have been Riker. But yeah, that's the one, he's right, it's the one time it works in a 40-minute episode, is the fact that you've got a character who is designed to fall for somebody and will, modify their behaviour completely to ensure that the other person falls for them.
Yeah. The fact that she's reading, and he then goes on to say, the fact that she's reading his mind is a very nice cheat. But let's tell the truth, this is a morally objectionable fuck fantasy for teenage and 33-year-old males. That Kamala's been brainwashed since she was 4 years old to believe it's her job to be a whore with literally no personality whatsoever to get men off is the opposite of free will to me. At this point I cut my rant as Famke Janssen, smoking hot,
yes,
I'll be in holodeck 4.
Yes, this is it. All my stuff about, it would have been more interesting if it had been a male character, but on the other hand, Famke Janssen.
I mean, to give the writers their due, they do say that male ones exist and are quite common.
Yeah, so the whole point about the female ones being so rare is why this is so important and key and stuff, yeah. I mean, they do kind of just about manage to have their cake and eat it, thanks to those scenes with Crusher sort of bringing up the moral objections. And yeah, it's and he's right that Picard's argument that, there have been arranged marriages in Earth's past doesn't exactly carry a huge amount of weight, does it? But yeah, no, interesting stuff. But I do think they just about get away with the moral issues with this one. Okay, let's have some MP3 feedback, I think. And we've heard from Drew and Tracy, so let's see what they make of this.
Hello Peter and Anne-Marie, it's Drew and Tracy here, and this is the feedback for...
The Perfect Mate.
The Perfect Mate. I tell you what I like, the medical bay, the blankets are silver, aren't they? That's like the future. Yeah. That's what all our blankets are going to be like in the future, silver.
Keeps the heat in. So Picard, he has this hot fit totty on the Enterprise, after him, and he's trying to kind of deter her, and he's like, no, I'm boring. I go to sleep every night with a book in my hand. Yeah, and the rest, love.
I reckon that when he walked out the room and she'd gone, he was like, no, I just turned down a definite shade.
Yeah,
So, what do you think of the episode?
Bit wishy-washy, to be fair. It wasn't the best. Not the worst. No, it wasn't rubbish, come on. But, Star Trek Next Generation do better.
So, Drew, you've got Famke Janssen on screen and you're paying all your attention to the bloody sheets?
No, it's the blankets, the shiny sickbay blankets.
Right, yes. And people have a go at me for being interested in the spaceships. Okay. Well, we clearly enjoyed it a bit more than they did. Let's see what the Pie Man makes of it.
Hello Orgs, Murray the Pie Man here to give my feedback for The Perfect Mate. I think we're back on Romulus here, not literally just the beige. I think these are the sort of episodes that people often think about when they criticise TNG. So on to the episode. It's really a mixed bag. I honestly think, again, we've got kind of the bin of half-used episode ideas that they've kind of tried to explore. This one, they've got the concept down that there's a woman who's this sort of, I'm doing the fingery thing with inverted commas, perfect mate, but she attaches onto Picard, but they're not quite sure what they're saying. There's part of it is they start off by talking about arranged marriages, and indeed there's a brief bit of discussion about, yes, while you may be uncomfortable with the arranged marriage that's occurring here, on the other hand, it will end war, is one woman's freedom worth peace, etc., which is an interesting discussion, but they kind of skirt at it and then go on to something else. They're briefly looking at what it's like to actually be her. We see her particularly seen in 10 Forward, where Famke Janssen, I can't remember the character's name, wanders into the bar and kind of starts being what the working class miner stereotypes want in a woman, which is a strange sort of lady female stereotype, and similarly she does the growl at Worf as well, that sort of thing. And then after that she almost seems a wee bit shaken. I thought, oh, that could go somewhere interesting, the fact that she's technically not her own person because she's always taking sort of empathically being what people want, whether that's through upbringing. That was an interesting thing. Again, it was kind of skirted around. We had a love interest for Picard, but it was he loves her, but he can't have her because she's got to go to this person. And again, it's like there were sort of three plot ideas which they never really focused on any one of them and never really did any of them justice. And it's a shame because at least two of those were an interesting idea. I wasn't quite as sure about Picard falls for a woman, or rather she falls for him as well. I wasn't quite as sure of that. A couple of comments though on the episode. Like I say, overall I think I wasn't that keen on it. It's not terrible. Again, we are just in the beigey period. A couple of things though. First thing, the scene where she's with Riker and she says, oh, I'm putting off a lot of pheromones, I'm surprised you're not reacting. I thought Riker's better response would have been, I'm constantly horny and on alert, your pheromones would make absolutely no difference to me. The second one is security in the Enterprise is terrible. The cargo bay with her pod in it is off limits. Now, I assumed that might mean they'd lock the door, or maybe even post a guard, but at least lock the door. But no, apparently the sum total of something being off limits on the Enterprise is that they tell everyone, don't go there, you're not allowed, which is very trusting, but as we can see, ultimately really rather shonky, and indeed we get a wee bit more of that in the next episode. But finally, I don't like, the actual character does seem a bit like a sort of male power fantasy to an extent. Even though I think they could have done something interesting with the character, I've not really got a problem with the character per se. It's just that they never really did anything with it, and as a result, it always does look a wee bit exploity. So overall, yes, it's not bad and it's not offensive. It's again, it skirts offending, but doesn't quite get there. And yes, it's just overall a bit blah. It's just, again, we're in the beige territory again. So yes, nothing really to write home about this one. But I will be back to talk about Imaginary Friend. Bye for now.
A wee bit exploity, I think, describes it quite well.
Oh, I love what you say about what Riker should have said. There will be no effect on me on do. I'm always horny.
He's always ready. Yes. And yes, the security is terrible, isn't it? And
atrocious.
Yes, indeed, that'll come up in the next story as well. Oh dear.
The woeful security just reminds me of. I remember. I can't remember how old it was, but I was at this theme park. I think I probably was a teenager, and I saw this posh woman just totally lose it in a way that just made me crease up, because she turned around to her kid who was playing up, who must have been about 4, and she went, "Henry, if you don't come here right now, Mummy will stamp her foot." and that seems to be the level of security on the Enterprise.
It does, sadly, yes. And the thing about not exploring the fact that she's been designed to completely adapt herself to somebody else and how much of a personality there is of her own. You're right, it could have been explored more. I mean, it was a very interesting concept. But I guess it'd be interesting to see how they'd be able to do that in greater depth without it becoming even more dull than it is in places. I mean, there are some very talky scenes between her and Picard that just do seem to drag somewhat. So. Yeah. So yes, I think I'm not. I think what places it above complete World of Romulus classification is definitely Famke Janssen, I'm afraid. And that's how shallow I am. Oh dear. Well, let's move on to Imaginary Friend.
Do we have to?
Oh, lucky me.
An innocent girl creates the ultimate fantasy.
How come I can see you?
A real live imaginary friend.
No one will know. It'll be our secret.
But has she unleashed a demon in disguise?
Damn thing's feeding off our shields.
And can anything stop its reign of terror?
You can die along with everyone else.
Find out on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Ultimate fantasy? Reign of terror? My arse. Oh dear.
Reign of shite, maybe.
Talk about overselling an episode, but that really was ridiculous. Oh, cruds. Let's get this over with quickly. This won't be a scene-by-scene description because the episode doesn't justify it, I'm afraid. It's just too dull. It concerns a girl called Clara. Clara, I think it's pronounced as Sutter. Who's played by Noli Taunton, who will return in Deep Space Nine in Shadow Play. Can't wait for that. She has an imaginary friend, which is worrying her father, who's Ensign Sutter, who's an engineering officer played by Jeff Allen. He'll be back in Voyager's Dragon's Teeth under a shit ton of makeup. Shame this episode wasn't about our daughter and her imaginary friend, really.
Poppy Spider.
Yeah, our daughter's so cool that she doesn't have, little annoying girls as her imaginary friend. No, she has spiders. Sorry, Catbus Matt. So the Enterprise arrives at a very pretty red nebula. And now it's time for Who's at the... We have our last story with Ensign Felton at the con.
Give me a head with hair, long beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, streaming, flaxen, waxen. Give me down to there, shoulder length longer, dear baby, there, mama, everywhere, daddy, daddy. Grow it, show it, long as I can grow my hair.
And I think we need to play that music just in honour of her and her almighty hairdo.
Yeah.
It's a shame. We'll be missing that do. Yet another little light tours around the ship. This has shades of The Child, which is not a happy thing to be remembering. No. Times it looks like somebody on set is playing with a laser pointer as well.
I thought that too.
At one point it goes past Data and Geordi, who are discussing boring engineering things.
Yeah. Then
it goes past Nurse Agawa talking with Crusher about a date she's been on.
And then after dinner, then what?
We went to the holodeck and took a walk on the Champs-Élysées.
The neural scanner still seems to be a bit off. Let's check the sensor calibrations.
I'll run a diagnostic.
And?
And?
After Paris?
He has shore leave next month. He asked me to go to Risa with him.
No problem. Nurse McCluggage can cover for you.
I don't think I'm going, Doctor. I hear it's a very uninhibited atmosphere. Personally, I don't think I'm ready for that kind of fun.
Which is really sweet, actually. And there's a potential trip to Risa with him as well in the offing.
Oh, Fanar.
Fanar. And then the light ends up in the Arboretum. Woo! Where there's no Keiko. So
hooray!
We ought to be thankful for that. But there is a civilian there with dungarees, which Claire is planting seeds when the light takes on human form as Isabella. And it's a terrifying teaser for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
The girl that's playing Isabella cannot act to save her life.
On a par with the Wooden Boy.
Yes, definitely up there with Captain Wooden. There are times when Isabella seems a bit creepy, but that's only because no girl acts like that. It's just so weird.
Well, no, I think there's 3 reasons she seems creepy. 1, no emotions. Mm-hmm. That can be creepy.
Which is not great for an acting performance, though.
No, but, no emotions. 2, shocking hair.
Yeah.
3, red eyes, which are added on.
Yes, occasionally she gets red glowy eyes, just in case you hadn't picked up the fact that she's evil.
Evil!
Yeah, she wants to explore the ship and sets off with Clara. There's a series of scenes of the 2 girls travelling around the ship to all sorts of inappropriate places, like engineering.
Where they just get told, you shouldn't be here.
What's to stop them being there, you silly fools? Yeah, Isabella's generally invisible, although there is a scene when they both race down the corridor and bump into Worf, and he informs them that they shouldn't be in that part of the ship. It's just a random corridor, but they shouldn't be there. No signs up or anything. How are they supposed to know what's stopping kids getting to places they shouldn't be? It's just ridiculous.
Oh,
isn't it?
and no force fields.
You get You get the impression that the adults sit down and they give the kids a map of the Enterprise and say, you can't go here, here, or here, and now we trust you not to go to those places. Yeah, because kids in the future clearly never do anything naughty.
Oh, it's just bollocks. And not only that, but it's so easy just to have a height-based force field that if your head doesn't reach a certain point, if you're not tall enough, you're not an adult, you can't get through it.
I'm not... Well, it'd be a sensor rather than a force field. You think about it as a force field, that wouldn't work.
No, but a sensor would.
Because everybody would bang their heads on it. But if it was a sensor that set off some sort of alarm when somebody that short went through, yeah, I suppose. Or unless there's there could be alien crew members that are quite short by virtue of them being aliens.
But if it's the fucking future, can you not do it through retinal scans or something?
If there's the fucking future, can they not lock doors?
No.
That's the issue.
Or open magically
have code pads to gain access to areas where you don't want children.
No, because in the future you don't need those. Kids, nobody does bad things. It's just utter fucking bollocks.
One vaguely nice scene. I quite like the guy who plays Sutter. He's all right.
Yeah, he's all right.
And Georgie reveals to him that he had both his parents were in Starfleet. And he's reassuring him that, just because he's in Starfleet doesn't mean that his child's going to end up a screw-up, basically.
Yeah.
It's a nice bit of background. And we actually see Georgie's father in Season 7, in Interface.
Do we? Yeah. See, in my brain, I'm afraid Georgie's father is the same as Franklin's father, because
No, he looks nothing like him.
Everybody in Starfleet's father
It's the other way around, because ironically, Georgie's father's a doctor.
Oh, okay. It's just my brain. If you futuristic military and father equals
but you see the difference.
Franklin
is that,
Senior.
Yeah, Geordie's an engineer, so rather than his father being military, he's actually medical.
Oh, okay, no, fair enough. Oh, yes, that's right. It's his mum that's the command officer, isn't it?
She is. She's in command.
Yeah,
yes,
no,
but I'm not sure you get to see
okay.
her. Girls also go to 10 Forward, which you wouldn't think would be off limits, as there's no alcohol to be drunk. But apparently they're not allowed in there unless they're with an adult for some bizarre reason.
Okay, so Wesley Crusher going in there with Robin Leffler.
But they were old enough, you see. I mean, there's a bit of difference in age, isn't there? Let's face it.
They're not adults, though.
Well, I don't know how... No, they were. They're certainly age 16 and above, which is pretty much the definition of adult these days. So.
Yeah, but bear in mind, this is in America where the drinking age is 21. Definitely not adult.
Yeah, but there's no fucking alcohol. There's no reason for them not to be in there.
Oh, I don't know. It's just... It doesn't make any fucking sense. This whole episode is a load of bollocks.
It is. Guinan lets Clara off for being there for the baffling reason that she too has an imaginary friend.
Who's a...
Tarkasian razor beast.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene where she talks through, which is very reminiscent of a Sesame Street scene. This episode of Star Trek The Next Generation is brought to you by the letters W, A, N and K.
Yeah.
Yes. Guinan is wearing a red outfit to match the Nebula in, which is quite nice. And there's a couple of scenes, another one in the conference room, where the lighting is really good.
Yeah. Nebula's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey-ho. And that turns out to be the home of the glowy light things that Isabella has come from. It's also got loads of sort of strands which the ship keeps hitting and causing it to shake.
It reminds me of that episode of Blake 7.
Not the web.
Yeah,
yes,
which is shit!
Well, appropriately enough, this episode of Star Trek The Next Generation is pretty much as shit as the web is. Yes. Escape is going to be difficult because they're surrounded by these strands at this point. And Isabella's fellow energy beings are coming to sap the energy from the ship. Dun, dun, dun. Because Clara is fed up with Isabella getting her into trouble for going to prohibited places, and at one point she messes up Alexander Rozhenko's clay pot. Yes, we have a scene with pottery.
I know. And Alexander Rozhenko is just like, that is, that's the tragedy, that's the dilemma, that's...
his clay pot has been ruined. Anyway, the girls fall out, causing Isabella to have glowy red eyes again, and she takes out Deanna with an energy-sucking beam when the Councillor comes to reassure or frighten Clara. That's about the limit of the threat here, I'm afraid. Picard takes Clara to the Arboretum where she calls for Isabella, and then Captain speaks to her, and eventually she appears, revealing herself to be an advanced scout, assessing the threat the crew posed and the energy aboard the Enterprise for consumption. Picard offers the energy for free, but Isabella says they deserve to be destroyed because they placed limitations on Clara. It is not a great acting scene from the girl playing Isabella.
No.
Picard labours the point about judging them by the way they treat children. Claire's offer to still be her best friend magically makes the aliens less hungry and they bugger off, allowing the Enterprise to leave. And the Enterprise then gives them some more energy. Isabella returns one last time to apologise, which is a very cheesy thing to close on. And all in all, it's a piss-poor episode. I mean, it's not offensive in a way that some episodes, I guess, have been, but it is boring, unengaging piffle. The nebulae effect scenes and lighting are nice, but that's damning with very faint praise indeed. Cost of living may have been bad, but at least it wasn't. At least it was amusingly bad. Whereas this is as dull as ditch water. And it's not surprising I didn't remember anything of this episode because there is nothing to remember. It is boring.
It is Satan's arse biscuits.
The only vague shred of comfort is that by the sounds of it, this episode could have been even more boring because originally the alien was going to be completely friendly. So there would have been absolutely no threat at all.
Nice.
Whew. Well, that's that one then. Pile o' shit.
Yeah.
Anything to add to it?
No. It's
Good.
boring. It shouldn't exist. It was 43 minutes of my life I'm not getting back.
Yep. Okay, well, let's find out what our feedbackers thought of it and see if anybody's fond of this turd. The Mark. You did the Mark last time, didn't you? Right, I think we know where the Mark's going with this because he entitles his post Imaginary Friend or Real Filler. Oh, good. Another little kid episode that seems to litter the 5th season, and we start with a slice of life. We get a new alien, and this whole thing, it's tedious, obvious, and unimaginative, and about as subtle as a shit-covered brick through a stained glass window. Finally, after all the tedium, we get a scene where Picard talks to Isabella to try to negotiate peace with the mysterious aliens, in a scene of equal tediousness as Picard attempts to explain the human reasons for why adults must be parents to children, which the alien is mistaken for some sort of oppression or something, hence its hostility. Given how shit parents are in Trek, the aliens have a point. The whole notion of children/families aboard ships like the Enterprise is absurd. Yes, I think that's a point the Mark has made before, but it's certainly a valid point.
Oh, yep.
I know there is historical precedent for non-working family to be brought aboard an exploring vessel, yes. The British Navy permitted wives on board through the 19th century. Though it was against official naval policy, captains could do as they liked and often let their officers bring their wives along, sometimes even on battleships. Now, most of the time, they were not at war and not in as much trouble as the Enterprise. But this is a ship that has been in at least 20-plus battles in 5 years, has encountered at least the same number, if not more, of deadly unknown threats. In this part of the 5th year, episodes, they ought to be ranked on a 2-point scale, ick or meh. It's reached a point where this makes season 1 look good, and that's the second half of this season is completely crap. I do wonder how big the death of Roddenberry was in a factor in the quality shift. It's a mess of a year with some real high spots sticking out in a year that is mainly made of suck. I think the first half was okay, but pretty much as soon as you hit the second half of the season, it goes downhill rapidly.
Yeah.
And it does coincide pretty much with Roddenberry dying, but I do think that's not necessarily a contributing factor of the dipping quality.
Well, I don't know, because you've got Rick Berman, once Roddenberry had died, desperately trying to defend the legacy in a way that when Roddenberry was alive but not very with it, he didn't do.
Possibly. I mean,
I blame Berman.
They could possibly have a lack of confidence you could put this down to, I think.
Or Berman undermining everybody's confidence. Can you tell I'm not a fan of Rick Berman?
He's not all bad, but yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not trying to claim, he's some nightmare, freakish, imaginary friend with red eyes that kills people. But, I'm just not a fan. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, let's find out what Daria thinks anyway.
And she writes, while this is a fairly typical the Harbinger arrives first and the rest of their people threaten to come after the ship later plot, I did like the little slice of life scenes as Isabella flew through the Enterprise. Data and Geordia are getting off on tech talk as you'd expect, and who can resist Nurse Ogawa's shy little giggles?
Oh yeah, it's sweet, that is.
No, that is sweet. I didn't like the tech talk. I don't like... Oh, look, I got a laser pointer. I didn't really like any of it.
Oh, that was her feedback, wasn't it? Blimey. It's kind of like she watched the first 10 minutes and switched off, which is a good move, really, because that's pretty much the highlight, that Nurse Ogawa bit.
Yeah, you say that, but she may have carried on watching and had nothing else to say, because there is fuck all else to say.
Yeah, possibly. Okay, let's find out what Drew and Tracy thought.
Hello, Peter and Anne-Marie. This is Drew and Tracy giving our feedback for Imaginary Friend.
So at the beginning, the ship gets invaded by Tinkerbell, didn't it?
It was Tinkerbell. We couldn't quite decide whether it was Tinkerbell or whether it was Jiminy Cricket.
I don't think Jiminy Cricket is glowing, is he?
I think he does, but Tinkerbell's not pink either, or red, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be one or the other.
Yeah. Isabella, she was quite passive aggressive, I thought.
She's very passive aggressive.
If we don't go to engineering, that means you don't like me.
She was a very weird character. When I appreciate she was an imaginary friend and she was being a child, but she was a right attitudey little lady, and she was almost verging on the female Chucky.
Yeah,
she was very
Chucky,
scary, you know.
Yeah, it's a frightening episode, isn't it?
Yeah, she just, really did scare me.
Yeah, when Troy said to Clara about how Isabella can't go to the ceramics class and her eyes aren't red, that is the international side of evil, isn't it?
Is it? Well, it was just like, really, I'll kill you, you know. You know, just going on the red theme, we did speak about red rum.
It was a bit red.
It was very red rum, and the fact that she had long blonde hair as well.
I like this episode. It started off a bit bland, but it was good. I think Picard. He always says he's not very good with children, but he's so good with children, isn't he?
He's a lovely. He's a bit of a softie, really.
And it was almost like his intelligence to recognise the situation where Isabella was looking at the ship from the child's point of view, and he could see that, and that's why she had a possibly negative view. You know, it's all down to Picard once again. He is the man, really, isn't he?
That's why he's captain. All in all, I think pretty good episode, this one. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yep.
Wow, people did like this episode.
That's
just
quite
goes
scary.
Show. I raised my glass to you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Blimey. Oh, okay. There's obviously a horror film vibe that's going on here that possibly doesn't work for us because we've not seen that many horror films. I don't know.
We've seen a lot of horror films of a particular type.
Yes,
I think it's fair to say. A lot of comedy horrors, haven't we? Really?
Yes, comedy sort of stuff, but not. And we've not seen the Shining, which I think they're referencing there, and we've certainly not seen Chucky. So
no, I have. I've seen one of them.
Have you? Oh,
yeah.
Well, I've not seen Chucky.
I got very scared. And I've seen Puppet Master and got so scared I dug my nails into my sister's hand and made her bleed.
Nice. So yeah, maybe there's a whole appeal to be had there if they're playing on horror movie concepts.
Yes, maybe it's just we don't have a frame of reference here, Donnie.
Donnie, yes.
So you have no frame of reference here, Donnie.
That's going to be our new reoccurring jingle, I think.
Quite possibly.
But yeah, I'm really pleased that it just goes to show that different episodes appeal to different people, and
no, fair
I'm really
enough.
happy they enjoyed that. Jolly good. Almost makes it worthwhile sitting through it now.
I don't mind. I get beer.
Yes, there is always the beer. Okay, well let's finish off as we always do with the Pie Man.
Hello again, Murray the Pie Man here to talk about Imaginary Friend. There's a kernel of an interesting idea in this story, not really well explored, and it would have probably been a bit conceptual, and truth be told, it probably wouldn't have been that good an idea, which would be to see the Enterprise from the point of view of one of the children living on it. I think that could actually give you a bit more of a view of parts of the ship we don't normally see. We see the Arboretum here, the schoolroom with its ineffectual teaching staff, the pottery room, because they do pottery, that sort of thing. And I thought seeing the crew and our sort of people from the point of view of an outsider would have been quite interesting. Sadly, it's not quite what we get. I'll go with what I liked about this episode, in that we get some very pretty shots of the Enterprise flying through a nebula. Aside from that, there isn't really much. Oh, I do like the ending, actually, not just that it finishes, but I do like the fact that at the end of the episode, Picard knows that the energy glowy things wants power from the Enterprise, and so gives them a huge feast of power. I quite like that as a sort of ending. It doesn't make them, the people coming at the glowy things, necessarily bad. They just were really looking to feast on the Enterprise's power, and he says, well, we'll give you a good meal before we go, which I liked. They didn't just naff off saying, well, it was a bit dangerous. On to the episode, and it's really not that good. The kid is annoying. She's a child actress, but basically we get her with her creepy imaginary friend, which is an alien thing. I suppose we do get Troy doing some proper counselling again. We've actually seen quite a bit of that in the past few episodes. But Ensign, what's his name? He's mysteriously involved for one episode and then buggers off, never to be seen again. I found that quite entertaining just for that. Extra character, and suddenly he has a whole load of lines and people are talking to him in engineering like he's there the whole time. But in general, it is just rather tedious. There's a mystery of what is the energy being, but we know it's an energy being forming as our invisible friend. Once again, we see how completely lax Enterprise security is, in the fact that on a ship with families and civilians on it, anyone can apparently walk into engineering, a very sensitive area of the ship with a large warp reactor in it. Two problems there. One, if someone had nefarious goals, they appear to be just able to walk up to the engine core and start firing at it, or planting bombs or whatever. Secondly, kids can go near that. Now, if my house was powered by a big nuclear reactor, I'd probably put a fence around it, or a locked door or that sort of thing, but it seems that they can amble up to any part of the ship they like without fear of anyone stopping them. How they don't get more kids transporting themselves into space, or flying out of airlocks, or getting lost under shuttlecraft, or I don't know, all sorts of things I don't know, because it doesn't seem to have any locks or security or anything to sensitive areas. I'd have actually expected a ship with a civilian population like that. Worf does state that there's areas designated for children, and to an extent I'd expect the ship to actually have areas zoned in for civilians, and perhaps even the turbolifts being designed to lock people out of other parts of the ship depending on who they were. But nope, it just seems that if you're a civilian, I'm surprised they can't just wander onto the bridge and Picard's not constantly trying to chase small children out from under the con or something. They're stealing his fish, that sort of thing. So yes, the fact that I focused on that kind of shows you what I think of the episode. Again, it was just kind of dull. You just kind of wanted it to finish, because the only unpredictable thing was what the aliens were, but even that mystery wasn't really enough to grab me. So yeah, so overall, 2 rather beige episodes. I'm afraid we're back into the beige period with a brief flurry of excitement, and now we're firmly back in the beige. So hopefully we'll have a couple more interesting episodes coming up. In fact, I think we do, because the Inner Light's coming up, and I remember that being quite good. So I'll look forward to doing that. As always, keep up the good work, and I will talk to you next time. Until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Back in the beige. Back in the beige.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, can't disagree with anything
No.
Murray says there, really.
No.
But, as he says, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
It's not an incoming train.
And the light at the end of the tunnel is the light of an oncoming train.
But next time, recording on Thursday the 20th of February, we will be covering the episodes I, Borg,
Woohoo!
which I remember really liking.
It's one of my favourites.
Yeah. And the next phase, which is Geordie and Ro are dead. Or are they? Which I also remember being rather entertaining as well.
Yes.
And involving Romulans. Yes.
Yeah.
It's been too long since we had Romulans. Forget these bloody energy, light, beam, crappy alien things. Give us some Romulans.
That aren't beige.
That aren't beige, yes. Ah, yes. That sounds like the good stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you to our contributors for sticking through 2, I think, as most people agreed, one of the more turgid episodes. And as I say, light is at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, definitely.
If you'd like to send feedback on the episodes we've already covered, or the 2 episodes we'll be covering next time, then you can contact us on
the Geek Planet Online forums,
bOrgCast.tumblr.com,
bOrgCast@geekplanetonline.com,
or on Twitter I'm Rev_Org,
and I'm Ammo_Purple.
Okay, folks, take care, cheery bye.
Bye.
The bOrgCast is brought to you by those awesome people at geekplanetonline.com.
And now, Carl.
Any sound clips used are for illustrative purposes only, and no infringement of copyright is meant.
The song at the opening of this podcast was written and performed by Adam Buxton and is used with his kind permission.
frills, handy for the hills, that's the way you spell New Mills. Brooding along by the runnel, while she's in Capri with her swain. And the light at the end of the tunnel is the light of an oncoming train.